We were put into limbo by the record company at that time. They had made a bunch of changes, and all the people that were there at the label when we did Images and Words in a Wake were now gone, and all these new people that were ready to move on to the next fad, whatever was popular in 97, 90, you know, 96, 97. They didn't care about Dream Theater, and you know, as far as they were concerned, Pull Me Under was a one-hit wonder, and they wanted something. They were ready to move on to the next thing.
You know, we went from things not working out to things really working out, so how long could that really last?
So we spent a year and a half writing, waiting to start our follow-up album, and just never given the green light by these people at the label. And it was frustrating. It was another period in the band that we almost gave in, threw in the towel. And we started to wonder, maybe Pull Me Under was a fluke. Maybe we are a one-hit wonder. Maybe that was our 15 minutes, you know?
We kept going, but it was, I would say during that period, we lost a bit of momentum.
We kept writing, and we ended up writing like 2 hours worth of material. And we went out and we started playing some local shows just to get out there and play. We couldn't stand being holed up in our rehearsal studio anymore. And that's when we felt our fan base again. And we felt that love, you know, being given back to us after staring at 4 blank walls for an entire year. And we invited some of these new label people out to feel that love. And I think that's when they said, hey, you know, let's get these guys back in the studio and do another one.
Just the kind of man you hear about, who leaves his family for an easy out.
The light at the end of the tunnel was that we started making Falling Into Infinity in the summer of '97, but really that was just, that was more the beginning of our next level of troubles.
Carry me to the shore.
Just because there was a little bit too much peripheral influence trying to be forced onto us, especially from the label, wanting us to come up with the hits.
And I remember Mike Portnoy in particular, it was a very tough time for him because he has a very distinct vision of how he wants the band.
You know, it was frustrating, and we were feeling a lot of turmoil within the band. I did not want to compromise. I wanted to stick to our guns and continue with the 12-minute songs. Some of the other guys were feeling the frustration and the temptation from the industry to maybe try things their way. And I had had enough. I said, fuck this. This is no longer about the music. This is about the business and the industry, and this isn't fun anymore. And I told the guys I wanted to leave towards the end of that tour, and they convinced me to see out the tour because we had a tour booked with Deep Purple.
Bruce Payne, who was Deep Purple's manager, is really how it all started. I had heard that Dream Theater was looking for a manager.
And we sat down and talked with them, and I told them my frustrations and I had had enough, and basically laid down the law. Said, if this band is going to stay together, the label has to stay the fuck out of our music. We don't want to work with outside producers anymore, no outside writers. The label will hear the album when it's finished. We're not going to them for permission on what is a hit single. They gotta, if this band's gonna stay together, if this band is gonna survive, everybody get out of our way, book the studio time, and let us make our fucking record.
Bottom line, Mike Portnoy and this band, I mean, they know, and John, I mean, they know their fans, and they know what their fans want, and they know how to get there. So it's really just up to us all together to work in the same direction and just push forward in that way.
We decided to stick it out, and with this newfound independence and freedom, let's give it one last shot. But there was one more piece of the puzzle that needed to be changed, and we decided to let Derek go. and get a new keyboard player.
And to me, I'd always been into like the progressive rock thing, like the Gentle Giant, Genesis, Yes, Pink Floyd. When I heard the sound, I was thinking, this is kind of like that, but it has a lot of this, you know, really tight and fast, kind of virtuosic stuff. And I thought, that's pretty cool.
We first met Jordan after Kevin left the band, and we were auditioning keyboard players, and we auditioned Jordan. And he blew us away. He totally blew our minds. I still can remember the audition. I could not believe what the guy was doing.
It wasn't a good time to join Dream Theater at that point, but we remained in touch.
He toured with us. Him and Rod Morgenstein opened for us at one point on tour.
Me and John Petrucci ended up doing a side project called the Liquid Tension Experiment. So I invited Jordan to be a part of this project, and then the great Tony Levin on bass.
We recorded 2 albums, and they were both pretty successful instrumental albums, and successful to the point where we all felt like, you know, this is a good thing. You know, this writing chemistry, this personal chemistry is really powerful.
So there was no doubt that he would work out. There was no question. You know, we knew this guy. We wrote with him, we recorded with him, we toured with him. He's the guy.
They came to me again and they said, hey, you know, if we approached you, you know, what would you say, you know, about joining the group again? And I was like, well, you know what? At this point, it could work.
And Jordan was always the guy we wanted anyway. So we let Derek go, and we brought Jordan on, and we went in and began this next chapter in Dream Theater history, free of the powers that be, and just completely independent, with a whole new like gusto for making the best album we possibly can and proving everybody wrong. Memory was the resurrection of Dream Theater. We were firing on every level on that album. The music, the lyrics, the melodies, the sound effects, the production. It was, you know, the concept. We just shot our load on every level, and it was do or die. If that album had failed commercially or critically, then we all would have given up. We would have said, okay, you know what, it's not working.
My role in the band was an important one. There was a lot of responsibility, and because I think I was hired to kind of like infuse the band and give it some new life. It was a fun role, but also a challenging role. And you know, at times at the beginning, it was a little painful for me to say, oh well, okay, this is not. They don't like this, or this is not going to work. And in some cases, I would play something or offer something that was maybe different for them, but they would go, you know, this is really cool. This is a great, you know, we like this.
I would say when you joined, when we made that record, we captured something. The group that film captured something, and it was a very special record. And I remember like everything really starting to come back together.
We really needed that record. We really needed that success, and we really needed that acceptance from the fans, and we really needed to do a record like that, like Scenes, concept record, self-produced. It was a very, very big point in our careers. Probably in the same way that Images and Words was a very big step, I think Scenes from Memory was also.
This album kind of, you know, rekindled the the relationship with our fans and the excitement and enthusiasm, because it was really well received and did great for the band. And the tour was a reflection of that as well. The tour, it was an excellent tour.
You know, thankfully that it really worked, and we've been heading down this very interesting, you know, career path ever since. And able to do the kind of music that we want to do, and getting along, and making a living, and doing, you know, doing cool stuff.
We haven't looked back since, you know? We've been on the road ever since then. Scenes from Memory, 6 Degrees, Train of Thought, Octavarium. It's been like write, record, tour, write, record, tour, write, record, tour.
I remember in particular just being in New York when we did the live Scenes from New York album, and just when I was up there kind of doing my solo, and the feeling and the support that I felt, and that was really, you know, that was a big highlight for me, you know, connecting like that. And the whole music thing is all about sharing, and when you can put out some energy and feel it come back, and that's the ultimate, you know, loop of, you know, energy. I think that's why we do this.
It's great. I don't think there's anything else like it.
Well, they're all very different records. In 6 Degrees of In the Turbulence, we were trying to think of something different to do as well. On all our records, we try to have some kind of different approach.
There's much more than you or I alone could even perceive, because the chances are that, you know, Mike has already figured out ways to like tie it into, you know, every possible, you know, Dream Theater moment in history.
Of course, it's a double CD. It has the song 6 Degrees, which is a whole CD in itself.
And I found that what happened after we created that, it was like, you know, the Dream Theater community got divided. It was like, some people were like, I like the first CD, well, I like the second, you know.
Once again, you put something out that's different, you get criticisms, you get people that like it, people that don't, people weren't sure about the orchestrations we were doing. But the funny thing is, with all these records and all these songs, when we play live, and we play any song from any album, they're always received well, and they always sound like they go together. And, you know, it proves that they're all like little bits and pieces from this larger story.
You know, to tell the real story, you don't look at a number on SoundScan, you know, or Billboard. If you want to know the real Dream Theater story, you come out to one of our concerts and you look around and you see these fans that are passionate and love this band and have stuck by us now through all these years, and, you know, will come see us a dozen times on a tour. That's the real story of Dream Theater, is our fans and our live show.
I've been to Chicago, been to New York City, been to Las Vegas, been to Cleveland, been to Columbus. I've been to like 6 or 7 different cities to see them.
We drove from Texas about 26 hours.
I didn't sleep last night. Like 3 days without sleep.
When you get to see the show, it makes it all worthwhile, and you just realize you're working for one of the most incredible bands on the planet.